Hey, y'all, thanks for tuning in. And this week and for the next couple of weeks, we've been talking about our journey to healing and how it isn't just this linear approach or navigation. It's kind of like a two steps forward, take the detour, do the roundabout, maybe make a U-turn, right? And so, what are some things that we might need to know or understand or do to be able to make sure that we're actually healing and not just doing the movements or going through the motions of healing. And so, one of the things that a lot of experts will tell you is that you need to be able to self-regulate. And one of those things is just to be emotionally intelligent and regulate your own emotions and understand your own experience so that you can regulate those emotions. And while that is true, and I 100% agree with that, um, there are spaces and times where you won't truly be able to self regulate or know that your self regulation has worked until you put yourself in situations where you need to co regulate. And so I'll give you an example. As a mom, sometimes you can get truly overwhelmed by too much noise, too many questions, too many toys on the floor, too many messes to clean up. And so there's a ton of times where your environment may cause you to need to self-regulate. And so something that happened to me is because, I explained to my kids about self-regulation so they know and they know when they're experiencing a big emotion that a lot of times their big emotions are attached to their lack of sleep because my kids don't do tired well. And so there were plenty of times where I would have conversations with the youngest and he would be, lashing out or acting in a certain way. And I'd say, do you need a nap or are you tired? Because he knows that that's something that he needs to do to regulate himself is to get enough sleep or know when he's too tired to process or deal with things. And so one time we were in the car and it was on the way to work. So we're talking at like 6:30 in the morning. But by 6:30, I've already gotten myself ready and packed lunches and gotten kids ready and done all of these things. So by the time we're in the car on the commute, like I've been up for hours, 2 hours trying to, get everybody ready and everything set for the day. And so something happened in the car, and I don't even remember what it was because the lesson that was inside of it was so much bigger. But I snapped because people were asking me things and asking me to do things, and I was driving. And like I do remember that part. And his response to me was, Mommy, do you need a nap? And I was like, actually, my rest and your rest don't look the same, but I do need a rest. Like I need to not have all of these things lingering over my head for me to do. But it was just funny to me because I know that I know how to self regulate. I know that I know how to leave a space. I know that I know how to do breathing exercises. I know that I know how to calm myself down. But that is when I'm alone, right? And so when I'm with other people, I have to learn how to co regulate. And it's scary because you have to put yourself in situations where other people might get hurt by your inability to self-regulate. But in an effort to understand if you're able to regulate in spaces that aren't in your control, you have to be able to co-regulate because you can self-heal. You can really go on that healing journey for yourself, but you're not going to know until you're in relationship or in proximity with other people if you're able to use those same tactics and tools when the outside world is having expectations for you or is, leaning in on you and creating some sort of hurdle for you. And so when you think about this in terms of relationship, right? And we can think about this in terms of a lot of things. When you're thinking about it in terms of relationship, if I know how to communicate my feelings and navigate conflict and, you know, stand up for myself and to approach things with curiosity, I can know that and I can do that when I'm regulating myself by myself. But when I'm in relationship with another person, that's when I really get to test how it's actually working. So that co-regulation really unlocks, is this working? Is this person healthy enough to be able to use these healthy tactics? Because that's a big one. And how many of my inner doors still have yet to be opened because I'm only enacting these tools when I'm all alone and by myself? Um, so it's really when you get into relationship, like in the relationship that I talk about often, I had taken a year to really assess and understand, like, what does it look like to be in a healthy relationship? What does it look like to be able to communicate in that healthy relationship? What do I look like inside of that relationship? Like, who even am I, etc. It wasn't until I got into a relationship that I realized that you can learn all of the self-regulation tools that you want, but if you're in a relationship with somebody who insists on not using them and everything being the way that they want it to be, none of those tactics will work. And so then you have to learn how does self-regulation also mesh and work in tandem with um, not just self-regulation, but also discernment. So how does my self-regulation work with my discernment? If I can't regulate the situation and I'm using all the tactics that I'm using and this person is still escalating, what is going on? Do I need to use my discernment to leave the situation, or do I need to learn some other tools or tactics inside of the space? Um, and the other part that self-regulation doesn't quite allow us to do is to understand those doors that we're afraid to enter, um, because we've created these barriers of safety around ourselves, and it doesn't quite allow us to dissolve those walls, right? And so until you're in relationship with other people, until you're co-regulating, you don't really know if you're capable of bringing down those walls. You don't even know if you really have them up, because when you're with you, you tend to not have to protect yourself and bring out the militia in order to keep yourself safe, because you don't always have to keep yourself safe from yourself. But when you get into relationship with other people and you learn how to co-regulate by using your self-regulation and their self-regulation, that's the space where you might actually get to dissolve some of the barriers that you've placed around your heart. And it's also the reason why oftentimes we're really good at self-regulation, but we don't give ourselves the same space to be good at co-regulation, because that also creates some vulnerability for us to be hurt inside of it. And we don't want to put ourselves in spaces where there is the threat that we could potentially be hurt or be in danger, if we tell ourselves that it's in danger. So love that you might be at a space where you're self-regulating. Love that you figure out, what your triggers are, how to not let people push your buttons, how to not have the buttons in the first place. And I would encourage you, once you've figured those things out, to get yourself in situations where you can utilize those tools. Understand how you're using some things to protect yourself when you really need to be vulnerable. Understand how sometimes those techniques aren't going to work on another person, even if that person is healthy, and how you might need to manipulate them or maneuver them, not the person, but your tactics, in order for you to be in relationship with people. And getting in a quiet room when your kids still need you to cook them dinner may not always work. So you might have to use a different tactic. Like my 23-year-old says, your AirPods are really helpful when your kids won't stop calling your name and you've told them that you can't help them right now. And they do work. That does work. I wouldn't call it self-regulation though. And so really finding out how the tools that you can utilize by yourself can also be utilized in your parenting journey, because when you get into a room where it's full of toys and it's full of, people calling your name, it may not be as easy to take those breaths. But I just want to make sure that we understand on our healing journey that self-regulation isn't the only thing. It's not the all-encompassing thing. You can't just know ways to regulate yourself and then be, a good parent to all of your kids, because sometimes they might need something, that another one of your children didn't need. And so it's really figuring out how your self-regulation can work in tandem with someone else's, and how co-regulating with each other, understanding what's going to heighten their emotions, them understanding what's going to heighten yours, being able to communicate through that is really the next part of being vulnerable and making sure that you're healing and not being in isolation, but that you're healing and you can do so in community. So thanks for tuning in. Remember, if this resonated with you, if something that you feel like could help somebody else out of their bondage, please share the message. Go to my social pages, like and subscribe to all the channels so that you can continue to get this information, because if it helped you, I'm sure that it may be the catalyst that someone else needs to break free from the bondage that they're experiencing. I appreciate you guys, and I'll see you again next time.